Yesterday, our fine president signed an executive order that impacts mail-in voting. And specifically, if I understand it correctly, he wants the Department of Homeland Security, in concert with the Social Security Administration, to create a national list of eligible voters. And then he wants the U.S. Postal Service to not send absentee ballots to people who are not on the Trump-approved list of voters. Do I have that right?
That's what my understanding is. I mean, to me, it sounds like a complete panic move. I mean, the president doesn't have any power over voting laws. Zero. The president has none.
The Constitution tells us how this. The Constitution tells us how this works, right?
And there's also not. You would probably know this better, Frank. I don't think there's like a list anywhere of eligible voters in the. The states have their own, roles, and I know that Trump administration is trying to get the various states to turn over their voter lists, their privacy laws in place, their state laws in place. But the bottom line is the Constitution clearly gives each state its own authority to vote and when. There is actually no affirmative right to vote in the Constitution. You have a right to free speech. You have a right to assembly. You have a right to bear arms and different interpretations of that. But there is no part of the Constitution that says you have a right to vote. Frankly, how your eligibility for the ballot is based on what state law says, with limitations under, say, the 14th Amendment, if it's just, discriminatory voting. And there are some amendments to the Constitution that make it unconstitutional to ban women, for example, completely. But it's up to the states. Now, the federal government does have some authority because all of us can go to the DMV and register. The Constitution says Congress can make voting laws for federal elections. When the Congress does that, the states have said, listen, it's a pain to have two separate ballots and two separate systems. So if Congress makes a law, we'll just go along with it. And we'll let everybody register to vote because you have to allow it for members of Congress, those kinds of elections anyway. So we'll just allow it for everybody. But nowhere can the president step in like a king or a dictator and override everything. It's just silliness. But the problem in part, Frank, is I think there's confusion. You and I have to sit here now and take up time explaining that is blatantly unconstitutional and there's no authority for that. This is, again, where are the lawyers? The lawyers are supposed to be the gatekeepers so that you and I and federal judges aren't having to waste our breath saying, no. The sky isn't purple polka dots.
And of course, where are the GOP lawmakers standing up and saying that, hey, time out, that's enough of that. You're not creating a Trump list of eligible voters. And it's funny, you reminded me, the executive order says eligible voters, not registered voters. So he's already asked the states, and Texas has already given up their list of registered voters. Now he's going a step further. Eligible voters means everybody who's a citizen and 18 years old and up.
Yeah, I don't think that list exists. The last time we did a census, it was during COVID, and he took steps to make it really hard to count people who don't necessarily have a residence. And that's, of course, every 10 years. And there's never a perfectly accurate count.
Do we want political appointees at DHS, Mark Wayne Mullen, oh my, and the whoever's the Trump's head of Social Security, and how about the Postmaster General, which might someday be Trump's? It certainly was for a god-awful amount of time. So you want them deciding whether Frank or Kim can vote and whether they're on or off the list? My word.
Yeah, this Postal Service thing is a problem. I mean, this is a bit of a tangent, but that was the fact that there are post offices all over the country is how his administration justified overriding, state governors and bringing in the National Guard. The idea that there's federal property that needs to be protected. There's it's kind of looking for whatever stretch of the imagination will give him unlimited power. And what people need to understand, I'm dating myself. I watched Schoolhouse Rock when I was growing up. But my 4 kids know every word to Hamilton, the musical, right? So we all know, generation after generation, no more kings. We are not a monarchy. I mean, we had no King's Day last weekend, but he's giving us an opportunity to reaffirm these very basic principles. You don't need to be a lawyer or, a career FBI senior official to know we are, with the stroke of a pen, he can't do whatever he wants. That's not American democracy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I actually, so you're, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you're confident that this will be challenged legally. It already, this executive order, and that it will win, but it'll be dragged through the courts and go all the way up, you think?
It'll definitely be struck down.
Yeah.
Again, it'll depend on what kind of Cirque du Soleil gymnastics his lawyers can come up with to concoct some kind of justification. They managed to get all the way to the Supreme Court on birthright citizenship.
We did.
So, in the old days, 10 years ago, and I was in the Justice Department, government lawyers don't make up arguments because the judges held them almost to higher standards. There's also ethical rules. The federal courts have rules that require legitimate fact-based and legal arguments, or you could be sanctioned. I don't know what happened to that. The lawyers seem to think if we throw it on the wall, it'll stick. Let's just do it, even if there's no legal basis. So there will be challenges. There's no way, Frank. And then the question, to your point, even if it's upheld, how is he going to actually enforce it? Because there is no such list.
Right. Well, oh boy. Yeah. He'll order those agencies to come up with something, but my Lord, it's continued. Each one of these is just a continued effort to suppress the vote.
And make people afraid and make people think he has more power than he has.
That's right.
Make people feel that it's not even worth voting, or I don't want to vote. It's going to be stressful or scary, or if you are an immigrant.
Well, yeah, Todd Blanche.
Look
at Todd Blanche, the Deputy Attorney General at CPAC last week, actually said he doesn't understand why people would object to having ICE agents at the polls. Well, because brown people won't show up. How about that? Yeah. All right, let's go on.
And I brought all my kids hand in, I wanted them to experience what it means when they were little they went and voted with me. I don't want people with guns. There's psychological impacts to this. I mean, Tom Blanche, I'm not sure what happened to his integrity as a lawyer. I really don't understand.
This is a guy who says he still considers himself to be the personal attorney of the president while he's masquerading as Deputy Attorney General. It's astounding. I want to cover.
He also has ethical obligations to the bar and to the rule of law as lawyers, and
I think
it's getting harder and harder, Frank, to explain that to my students. I have to come in and say, listen, you don't get to just ignore the law. You don't. I didn't used to have to say that pre-Trump.